All right, we'll just go ahead and get started. My name is Emily Rischel. I am a business advisor at the Kansas Small Business Development Center. And this is Startup and Start Right. So today we're going to be discussing the 10 steps outlined by the SBA to starting your business and how you can use those most effectively to be able to get started quickly and get started right, to make sure you're not having to make any substantial corrections as you go along throughout your business journey. I said earlier, but for those of you who are just joining us, feel free to throw any questions you have in the chat box, and I'll be checking that continuously throughout the presentation. I'll also leave some time at the end to answer any questions that you may have. My email is also on the screen. It will be at the end of the presentation, I believe, as well. And so feel free to email me if you have any specific questions or would like some specific advising on some of these situations. So briefly, I'd like to discuss what the Kansas Small Business Development Center is and what we do. So we are an organization that is taxpayer funded. So we are part of the government, and our purpose and our job is to give a support system to small businesses in our area. We are funded also by the Small Business Administration, the SBA, which is where the small in our name comes from. But we work with businesses of a wide variety of sizes with all different kinds of business needs. We do this in 3 ways. First off, we work to train you with kind of broader concepts. Some examples of our training are what we're doing today, webinars, things where it's more of that group. We work on training you in that. We also then, the kind of bread and butter of what we do is our advising. So that's going to be one-on-one. We give you a specific advisor that you work with the majority of the time, although you have access to a wide variety of advisors who all have a different skill set and specialities. So I tend to work with marketing and startups, whereas we have advisors that do HR, some that do finance, loans, things like that. So we can work to connect you with the right advisor for your right situation, and then just be able to discuss your business one-on-one with you, hear the kind of pain points and problems that you may be having, and help to address those in an effective way. And finally, we help to connect you to other networks and other resources that may be beneficial for you. So that may be some of our small business partners, those who are like Network Kansas or the Chamber of Commerce, who can help to get you those resources quickly. We can also connect you to other businesses in our network that we feel may be beneficial for you. So we are a no-cost confidential service. So we can connect you with other businesses by getting an agreement between the both of you that you're willing to discuss with each other. And then we can move forward that connection to help propel your business. So these are all functions that we perform here. If you're interested in any of these, feel free to email me or sign up on our intake form on our website in order to meet with an advisor. So the 10 steps that we're going to be discussing today to starting your business come from the SBA, and they have an exhaustive list of a lot of these things as well. So if you would like more information on any of these, feel free to visit the SBA website and they can give you more specific information on some of them. Today is a combination of kind of a broad overview of each of these, as well as more links and tools that are Kansas specific to help streamline the process for you. So the first step is to conduct market research, making sure you know who your customers are before you are trying to jump in and start a business. Next, writing your business plan. This can even be an abbreviated version, if that is appropriate for your business situation, to be able to understand how each aspect of your business works together and works in the market. Next is funding your business. We'll discuss different options for funding. Picking a business location. This has traditionally been brick and mortar. Where are you going to put your building? Where are you going to rent? But recently, this can also mean, what is your online location? What kind of domains are you choosing? What kind of third-party websites are you going through in order to have an online location for your business? Next is choosing a business structure. We'll discuss the differences between sole proprietor, LLC, C Corps, S Corps, that kind of thing. Next is choosing your business name, making sure that it's not already taken, things and best practices to know with that. Next is going to be registering your business with the state, and then getting a federal and tax ID numbers. We'll discuss what an EIN is and if you need one. Next is going to be applying for licenses and permits. We'll discuss how to make sure you're doing all of that legally and covering your bases. Next is and finally is opening a business bank account. We'll discuss why that can be beneficial for your business and why in some cases it's necessary for your business. First off, market research. So when you're conducting market research, it can mean that you are either pulling prefabricated information from different databases like the US Census Bureau, those kinds of things. Or maybe you're looking up information based off of your industry NAICS code. That can all be kind of this prefabricated information that can be really beneficial. We can also assist though in helping you to conduct your own market research. If you're looking to conduct a survey or gather your own market research, we can give you a good direction on where to go from there. That way you can get more specific information. But things to consider when you're conducting market research is the demand size. Is there going to be enough demand for your product to justify going into business? This comes into play a lot with somewhat niche markets. Are you going to be able to reach them? Not only are there enough people, but are there enough people that you can actually talk to? Or are they difficult to get to, difficult to market to, aren't going to be able to know about your business? Next is market size. And so that plays into the same thing. Demand is a little bit more so on the side of, are people going to want your product? Are they going to find it valuable and useful? Is there a demand for it because it's fulfilling a need? Market size is a little bit more of, are there enough people who are going to need it? Economic indicators, those can be, are we about to go into a recession? Are we leveled out? Are we about to hit an economic boom? And how is that going to impact your products? This can be considered when you're thinking about, is your product a luxury product, or is it just kind of a standard, you need that kind of product? Like milk isn't going to be vastly impacted by economic indicators because it's just kind of something that you need every day. It's a staple. But a Rolex watch may be a little bit more impacted by the economic indicators. Next, you want to consider your location. Certain locations are going to react to your business differently than others. And so you'll want to know how that specific location is going to react to your product, your service, whatever you're bringing to them. And you can also research which locations may be more beneficial before you decide what to go into. That way you're going into a location in a market that's going to be receptive to your product. Next is market saturation. Maybe there is a really big market for your product or service, but there's a lot of players in the game. Are you going to be able to break into that? Are there a lot of barriers to entry? And what can you do to get into that market? And then finally is pricing. A lot of people think pricing is a function of, I just got to cover my costs and make a profit. And while that is certainly what you want to do, you do that by deciding first, what is the market's demand for this? So I can make widgets and say, it cost me $2 to make these widgets. I want to make a $2 profit, so I'm going to sell them for $4. Well, that's great, unless the market is only willing to pay $3 for that widget, or maybe they're only willing to pay $2 for that widget. In that case, you want to know what the market is going to be willing to pay before you determine your price. That way you can determine, one, if it's even a viable option for your business, because if the market's only willing to pay $2 for a widget, I either have to figure out how to manufacture them cheaper than $2, or it's not a viable business option for me. So know that pricing is a function of the market, not of your finances. Next is going to be ask around. When you're conducting market research, especially for home-based businesses, it's not always something that you need to do a giant survey in order to determine if the market is going to be accepting the product. While that can be beneficial, it can also be costly. So I would encourage you to ask your friends, ask strangers if you are bold enough to and can find a good location to find people who may be in your target audience. Bring your product out to, you know, a crowded street one day downtown, maybe not in current COVID climate, but do so maybe over Zoom meetings or something like that, where you can get some feedback on your product and see if there are any things that could be adjusted about it or made better about it to help it to sell better. And next, a great tool to use for market research can be social media. So posting on forums or posting on your own personal social media pages, while understanding there will be some bias there, as to a poll whether or not people would be interested in your product. Figuring out, you know, should we manufacture it this way in the more expensive way but better quality, or should we manufacture it in the cheaper way that is less quality but it's going to be to the same threshold for the consumer. Knowing that information ahead of time can be really beneficial, so you don't invest a lot of your money into something that isn't going to be ideal for the customer. Next are resources. So some resources for you to be able to use: obviously the Kansas Small Business Development Center. We can, like I said, help you put together market research if that's something that you are needing. Next is going to be this tool called the ESRI Tapestry. This is what I use with a lot of my clients to help them visualize their target market a little bit better and to understand location better. So the ESRI is a data collection company. And so they have lots of data. They specialize in market research, and they have this free tool called their Tapestry, which is where they've taken all this demographic, psychographic, behavioral information from huge studies that they've done. And they classify people in the US into, I believe it's 50 different groups. And they call them something different to reflect their kind of social group that they're in. They then tell you in each zip code what percentage of that zip code is which group. So maybe 90% of that zip code is this one particular group, and then you have 5% of another group and 10% or 5% of another group. That just helps you to understand, you know, who's your target market, and is it lining up with the same zip code of the people that live there. This can be really good for location studies. It's a fun tool to navigate anyhow. I would encourage you to click on the link. And everything that is underlined in here is a clickable link. So when we send you these slides at the end of the presentation, you'll be able to click on those and go straight to the tool yourself. The next resource I would encourage you to use is your local libraries. They have a lot more than just books. They have a lot of resources and tools for business owners to be able to do some research. They have databases that you can access to do industry research. They're just a really great tool. And then finally, like I said earlier, the SBA website is going to be a great tool as well, not just for general business direction and advice, but also for market research. They have some tips and tricks on how to do market research, as well as some small connections to databases that you can utilize. Next is going to be writing your business plan. So I would encourage you, before you go and do a full-blown business plan, the multi-page document, I would encourage you to do what's called a business model canvas. This one here is just an example of one, but if you go ahead and just Google business model canvas, then you'll have lots of different versions come up, but they all essentially look like this. And the purpose of a business model canvas is to be a one-page business plan. It's just something to help you organize your ideas and see how the different elements and aspects of your business are going to work together. And so as you look at the example here, you see, you know, who are the key partners of, or excuse me, this is for the ready-to-drink Starbucks coffee, so the ones that you get in the glass jars at the gas station or out of vending machines. And you look on the left and you see, you know, who are their key partners? Well, they've partnered with PepsiCo to distribute these. Starbucks is also obviously a key partner. Key activities, you know, they do the production, marketing, research and development, distribution. Those are kind of broader categories. I find that a lot of small businesses do something a little bit more narrow. Key resources, their brand is a huge key resource for them. That's their selling point, is the Starbucks brand. Their HR representatives, their bottling plant, the distribution network, those are all things that are, if those functions were not there, people would not want to buy their product. Next, customer relationships. They work primarily through product advertisement. They don't have a huge community built around specifically their ready-to-drink Starbucks coffee, although the coffee shop itself may be a different story. But customer relationships is essentially, you know, how are you building relationships with customers? Are you building relationships with customers? The answer should probably be yes. Otherwise, you're going to have a tough time retaining customers. Next, you're looking at channels. So this is how does the product get from the warehouse or wherever it is, the manufacturer, to the customer? If you're doing online, that's going to be just online sales, shipping it. Maybe it's a, you know, ready to print download, something like that. But their channels here are supermarket retail and kiosks and vending machines. So that's essentially just, you know, where does the customer get the product at? Having a variety of ways that customers can get your product can be beneficial for reaching a broader audience. It does also come with some more costs. So you'll want to weigh the different options of deciding where your customers are going to get it from. Customer segments, this is going to be your target market. So the customer segments for these ready-to-drink Starbucks coffees are the home or office-based Starbucks aficionado. So somebody who really likes their Starbucks, but they want to just be able to have it in their fridge at home, as opposed to having to go out every day and get a coffee. There, you can also consider at the bottom the cost structure. So this is, you know, what different aspects are going to build your cost for you, are going to factor into the cost to make the product. So for them, it's their production of the bottles, of the drink, their marketing, their research and development, and distribution. Those are all things that factor into the cost of the product. And then revenue streams. How are you getting your revenue? So this is purchase per shipment. You can also do, you know, maybe you're a subscription service, or maybe you are a flat rate. It all depends on how are you structuring your revenue streams, and how can that help to ensure consistent revenue streams for your business. I would encourage you to fill out this business canvas model, even if you don't need a business plan, because I find that a lot of business owners have this really great concept and really great idea, but have difficulty connecting all the pieces together as to how it's really going to function and flow the best. And when they start doing this activity, it helps them to see, like, oh, I may hit a snag, or I may hit a hiccup here. Here's how I can already go ahead and adjust my business model to not have to deal with that once I've started. I can just address it up front. So but if you are doing a business plan, maybe you're looking to get a loan or just have a more complicated business idea that you want a full plan for, this can also be really beneficial to making sure you're thinking through everything before you go and write it all out and spend all that time doing that. Once again, just finding any snags that may be there before you are writing multiple pages of a business plan. And the other beneficial thing about the business model canvas is that it's a fluid document. So I like that in this, they did it with little sticky notes and just a few phrases, a few words. Because it shouldn't be a full-blown business plan. It shouldn't be paragraphs or sentences. And it should be able to be edited quickly. So the sticky notes are nice because you can just pull them right off. I encourage my clients to get a whiteboard version or a laminate version, or just a piece of paper that's stuck up on their office wall, and have those sticky notes on it, so that way you can switch it out quickly, or at the very least write it in pencil so you can erase it and adjust things as needed. Because your business is going to change and grow as you trial and error some things. As your business expands, you're going to have to work out some more things with it and to adjust your business plan overall. So this is a great way to do that quickly and in a fluid manner. Next is funding your business. So we're not going to go very in-depth here because there's a lot that could be said about funding your business, but you want to make sure before you are looking at what kind of funding you need that you're calculating your startup costs to know if you're even going to be able to get that funding, or if you're going to need to get a loan, if you can do it out of your savings, something like that. So I would recommend here this outlined or underlined SBA startup template is basically just a very simple PDF document that allows you to consider what kinds of costs there may be associated with your business and to start filling those out. I would encourage you to, as you're starting, help to fill in any blind spots that you may have in some of your costs that you're not anticipating. Just go ahead and Google startup costs for, and then your specific industry or type of business, because people on the internet are going to help to fill in those blanks for you a little bit more. Each industry is different and has different kinds of costs, and it can be beneficial to have input like that to consider them all. You can then put it into this SBA startup template. You could also use Excel if you are a little bit more adept at that. If you really understand numbers well, that could be a good place for you to do that. You can also come into the KSBDC, work one-on-one with an advisor. We can help you to figure out what kind of startup costs you may need or be having. And once you've done that, then you can look at, okay, how are you going to fund this? So do you have personal savings that you're going to be able to put in to get your business started? Or do you have investors that will come in? There are different kinds of investors. You can use family and friends as investors. And then you can also use like an angel investor if you happen to be that fortunate. You can also use crowdfunding, which is a relatively new form of investing where you can promise something to a group of people for giving money to your business. So the most popular crowdfunding platforms are Kickstarter and Indiegogo. And those work as a rewards-based crowdfunding platform. So you say, here's my business concept. I'd like to get it funded. And then people send money your way. And in return, you promise them some sort of benefit. So this could be an early release of your product where they get it before anybody else does. This could also be you just giving them maybe an expansion pack. If, for example, there was a card game that was very successful using expansion packs. You could also do some sort of added feature or benefit. Like I said, a first chance at it for those who are supporting your business. The beneficial thing about this is if you get a lot of people to invest a little bit in your business, then you're more likely to be able to get the funding that you need. So this is an option for a lot of people and a lot of businesses. The other option is just good old-fashioned loans. So this is, an option that is something that does require a business plan. It also requires that you have some sort of collateral, some sort of means to be able to ensure you can pay it back. If you're interested in getting a loan, we do have resources here at the KSBDC that will assist you in getting that all set up, filling that out. We have a new program that will work one-on-one with you to really understand what it means to apply for a loan and what banks are looking for with those loans. So if you're interested in that, feel free to reach out to us. We'll help to work with you on that. Next is location. So you want to pick an appropriate location for your business. We're going to discuss selling platforms first because I found that a lot of businesses have been starting online lately because of the low startup costs that are associated with it. So first off, we have, these are by no means an exhaustive list at all. This is just kind of a few of the names that get brought up more frequently. And so I wanted to discuss these to give you an example of different types of selling platforms you can choose. So the first is Etsy. Etsy is a selling platform that allows you to sell homemade or handmade goods. So if you are the one who manufactures it, or it's been previously manufactured, or vintage goods on Etsy, you can sell them on here. It's a third-party platform where they already have it all set up. You're able to go in and basically create a shop, and you get put into their platform as a shop owner. You can then upload pictures of all your products and prices with those, information about those. And the beneficial thing about doing something like this is that Etsy does the marketing for you. So it works as a search platform. So when I, as the consumer, am going onto Etsy and looking for, let's say, Beanie Babies, I would search in Etsy for Beanie Babies, and they would pull up all the different vendors that have that sell that, and all the different products. And so I would be able to browse different products and see all of these vendors at once. That can really help to get you exposure and sales at the beginning if you have a tight marketing budget, because Etsy takes a percentage cut out of the sales for their marketing. So it's not up to you to provide a substantial amount in the upfront. So this is a really good option if you have kind of a limited startup budget. Another good option would be Amazon. So Amazon works in a similar way. I think a lot of people are more familiar with Amazon. It is another search-based shopping platform where you are able to be a shop owner on there, to put your products on there, and they allow people to search in their site and to find products like the ones that you sell. Once again, they take a percentage cut for what you sell. On Etsy, I believe that they have just a standard listing fee and then a standard percentage cut. On Amazon, it varies per what your industry is. So Amazon does have a seller's guide if you're interested in looking at what that might be. That outlines it very, very clearly for you. But you can also sell on Amazon. Once again, Amazon has the name, the brand behind it. So you don't have to work on getting your brand or your name to be a common household name, as long as you have a product that does well on Amazon. This can be a positive and a negative. If you don't have a common household name, then you don't have the brand behind it, and you're fully dependent on Amazon. Which, like I said, has its perks with being able to avoid some initial marketing costs there, and to just find a lot of success on a popular platform, but it is a give and take. The next platform I want to talk about is Shopify. So Shopify works basically to help you create your own personal e-commerce website. And so Shopify works really well if you're looking to do drop shipping, where you buy from another manufacturer and immediately send it to the final consumer. But it also works well if you're looking to sell your own individual products and you don't want them to be right next to other shops that may have similar products. With Shopify, they don't pay for the marketing costs for you. While they're a big name, it's just your website. And so you're not going to get the marketing benefits that you may with Etsy or Amazon, but you do get the benefit of being able to design it how you want, being able to lay it out how you want, and it's your own personal website. So these are just a few of the different locations you can choose to sell online. There are lots and lots more. If you're interested in discussing some of those, please reach out to me, and I'd love to go over some of the options that are available to you. Next, we have location, as in more of a physical standard location. So when you're determining your location, you want to really consider who your target market is. This goes back to that ESRI tapestry that I was discussing earlier, and tools similar to that. So what is your target market? Is your location going to fit with that target market, or do you need to adjust your location? Where are you registering your business? There are some benefits to being in different locations, such as if you're in a historically underutilized business zone or a hub zone, you may be able to get certain benefits from that if you are located in that area. It can also have an impact on the kinds of taxes that you pay. which can obviously have an impact on your overall, on your final numbers. It also has an impact on what kinds of licenses and permits are required to be in certain areas, and what local zoning ordinances there are. So whether or not you can actually have a business there, or what kind of business you can have there, whether you'd be able to expand into a different type of business in the future. These are all things to consider while you're choosing your location. Not just, does the building look nice? Does it fit? Does the building fit your needs? Because that is very important, but the surrounding community is also just as important. If you're interested in seeing if you are in a hub zone, or if you're interested in being part of the hub zone program, you can click on that link on the right-hand side of the screen. Next, we're going to discuss business structures. So this is probably the startup question that I get the most questions about. So I'm going to do my best to discuss these in depth, but I'm sure there are things that I'm going to miss. So if you have questions, please feel free to throw those in the chat box and I'll answer them as I can. So choosing a business structure comes down to a decision between the protections that that business structure gives you and your business, and the benefits that you get from doing that. So the first type of business structure is kind of the unofficial kind of business structure, and that's a sole proprietorship. So if you are a sole proprietor, there is no difference between you and your business. You're the same thing. Even if you call your business by a different name, you are still the same thing as the business. Your assets are the business's assets, and vice versa. You don't have to formally register as a sole proprietorship. If you are doing business and haven't registered as anything else, you are automatically assumed a sole proprietor. With a sole proprietorship, there's no liability protection. So what this means is that if you are, selling sweaters and shipping them around the world or around the country, and you're doing so as a sole proprietor, if for some reason you have a shipment that is lost or destroyed, damaged, or you have some sort of bankruptcy, lawsuit, anything like that, any financial troubles, that can come back on you personally. So it doesn't just stay with the business. It doesn't just drain the business of the funds. If there is not enough then in the business, it comes back to you, because you and the business are legally considered to be the same entity. So then it can take your personal assets like your car, your house, those kinds of things to help cover those costs. It is the simplest business structure, and you don't have to register this business with the state, so there's no registration costs or any sort of meetings or documents that you have to fill out for this. Sole proprietors, or a sole proprietorship, is a good choice for a low risk business. So if there is very low risk of you getting into any sort of financial distress with your business, or your business getting into financial distress, this could potentially be a good option for you, because you don't have to consider some of the costs that go along with having an LLC or a corporation. So next, let's discuss what an LLC, or a limited liability company, is. A limited liability company has the benefits of a corporation as far as liability protection goes. So with an LLC, you and your business are different entities. So if the business goes into any sort of financial distress, if you go bankrupt, or if the business goes bankrupt, if there is a shipment lost or anything like that, the business will be covering those debts. It won't come back on you personally. So even if the business goes down, goes under, your own personal assets are all completely protected. So they can't come for your house, your car, anything like that. And they won't be at risk. One of the benefits of an LLC, and the reason that a lot of people choose this, is because you get that liability protection of a corporation, but you don't have to pay corporate taxes on profits. So corporations get what's called double taxation, which we'll discuss on the next slide, but they basically have to pay taxes twice, whereas limited liability companies do not have to do that. But the owner does have to make contributions toward Medicare and Social Security. When you are the owner of an LLC, you are considered self-employed, so you have to pay self-employment tax, which means you have to be keeping that money throughout the year because it comes out of your own personal pocket then, not the LLC's. An LLC does also have a limited life. And so what this means is that while the LLC and the business owner are not the same entity, the LLC is dependent upon the business owner being in the company. So practically what this looks like is if you cross state lines and the business functions cross state lines, then the LLC is dissolved and no longer exists. Because LLCs can only exist within the state that they are created in. If you died or the business owner died, then the LLC would also dissolve because the business owner is no longer connected to the LLC. If you wanted to retire or sell the business or hand it down to a family member, the LLC would have to completely dissolve and be recreated under the new person in order to sell that business or pass it on. So that's what it means for an LLC to have a limited life. Its life as a business only extends so far as the business owner is involved with the LLC. It is about $160 to register an LLC initially, and then it's about $50 annually in the state of Kansas to retain your LLC. And an LLC is a great choice for a medium to high risk business that doesn't have to raise lots of money through the sale of shares because you get the benefits of not having double taxation with the benefit of the liability protection. So this is a very common choice for a lot of small business owners. A corporation, or for our purposes, a C Corp, there are different kinds of corporations. There are also S Corps and B Corps, which essentially function the same, but with a few adjustments. So we'll discuss those. But for C Corp, you have the strongest liability protection. So your assets are separate from that of the businesses. Once again, if the business goes bankrupt, has a lawsuit, anything like that, that won't come back on you personally. I do want to mention that for a limited liability company, for a corporation, keeping that separation between the business and the owner is dependent upon the way you handle your finances and your assets. So you must have a separate bank account if you have a limited liability company or a corporation, because the business is separate from you. And so you must have a separate bank account in order to keep those finances separate. You also have to take meticulous records, because if you as the business owner want to put money into the business, you have to do an official transfer from your account into the business's account and call it, a loan or an investment or something like that. If you as the business owner, buy a company car, then that company car has to be used for company purposes. You can't pay for your own personal car out of the business account. If you are paying yourself as the business owner, you have to do a formal owner's withdrawal. And so you take, you pay yourself with these formal accounts. You can't just spend money on the business credit card for your own personal uses. You can't spend money on your own credit card for the business uses. There has to be a complete separation of the finances in order to keep that liability protection, because if you do not keep your finances separate, then that can dissolve potentially the liability protection that you would have with these different business structures, and they would be able to then come after your personal assets and finances. So that's very important to keep in mind. I would highly encourage you, if you are an LLC or a corporation, discuss and utilize the uses or the services of a financial expert, an accountant, a CPA, somebody who would be able to help you navigate all of this. So with a corporation, your taxes are taxed twice, or your profits are taxed twice. First, when the company makes a profit, And then again, when dividends are paid to shareholders on their personal tax returns. And so you're taxed twice on the same funds. Which is why a lot of small businesses shy away from being a corporation. The benefit of being a corporation is that you can sell shares. And so that can be a means of raising funds for the business, is to sell shares and have people be kind of small part shareholders in your company. A corporation has an independent life, which can be another benefit of a corporation. So it's not dependent upon the owner's continued involvement in the company like an LLC is. So it can cross state lines. It can continue on after the owner is deceased. It can continue on if the business is sold, or if it's handed down to a family member, something like that. Though a corporation then can be retained and retain normal business functions during that. Corporation does have a higher upfront cost initially than an LLC does in order to start. And it can be a good choice for medium to high risk businesses that need to raise money or plan to go public. So I said that there are different kinds of corporations. C Corp is kind of what we traditionally think of as a corporation, but there's also something called an S Corp. Same thing, strong liability protection as it is with a corporation. Your personal assets are separate from the businesses, but it's designed to avoid the double taxation drawback of regular C Corps. So S Corps allow some profits and some losses to be passed through directly to the owner's personal income without ever being subject to corporate tax rates. This does also mean that, sorry, I'm jumping to the bottom here. It does have a higher upfront cost, and you must also file with the IRS. It's a good choice for high-risk businesses that would otherwise be a C Corp, but are looking to sell fewer than 100 shares or have fewer than 100 shareholders that are all US citizens. So this is a more popular option for small businesses. I wouldn't say that overall it's a more popular option, but between the C Corp and an S Corp, it's the more popular. I don't believe that I have it on here. I don't, but there's also something called a B Corp, which is a benefit corporation. That's essentially if you have some strong public benefit that is associated with your business, but you're not a nonprofit, you can register as a B Corp. That's far more rare, so I don't have information about that on the slides, but if you feel like you may fit into that category, I'd encourage you to look on the SBA website and see what their guidelines for that are. So next is picking a name. So LLCs and corporations must register a unique entity name with the Kansas Secretary of State. I would encourage you, if you are a sole proprietor who is considering potentially becoming an LLC in the future, check with this link as well, see if your business name that you're currently using or looking to use is even available. And then before you officially choose a name, I would encourage you to check the domain name availability. I think that almost every business, even if they're not selling online, should have some sort of a domain name for their website. And so you want to make sure you are picking one that is a good one that is available. So I'd encourage you, I use instant domain search. Sometimes, there's also GoDaddy has a domain search as well. And you can look on there, see what's available and buy from there, buy a domain from there. So check out these links. They should help you when you're choosing a name to pick one that's going to be available for you. Next, you want to register your business. So in order to register your business, you will need the business name, the business location, the ownership, management structure, or directors of the business, and the registered agent information. So you can use all this and register at the Kansas Secretary of State website. That link is below here with this underlined text. Next, you need to get federal and state tax IDs. So we get asked a lot about an employer identification number, and if you are required to get that if you are an LLC. You are not. So the difference between an LLC and or a business structure of any sort and an EIN is like the difference between a birth certificate and a social security number. So if when you're born, or for this analogy, when the business is born, you get a birth certificate or something that just says you exist. That birth certificate is similar to a business structure. So the business structure just says this business exists, and then it gives some identifying information. And so, that could be on your birth certificate saying who your parents are, what your gender is. On your business structure, that's going to say what the name of the business is, who the owner is, that kind of thing. Whereas your EIN is more similar to your social security number. So if you get a birth certificate, that's all good and well, but you can't really function in society very well, or at least in the US, without having a social security number, because that allows you to, open bank accounts and to get jobs and things like that. So it allows you to function and conduct business in the society. So the employer identification number does a similar thing for a business. It's what you'll put on your loans and different documents for the business to be able to conduct business. If you do not have an EIN, you will use your personal social security number. So they're very directly related in that way. It's generally only needed if you have employees, though. So if you do not officially have employees, you don't need an EIN, except for a few kind of rare circumstances. You can check on those with the IRS with this link below. They'll give a list of, some other circumstances that may necessitate the use of an EIN. Some people some businesses choose to get an EIN even if they don't have employees, simply because they would prefer to keep all business functions like the business. So instead of using their personal social security number, they prefer to use the EIN. But yes, if you have more questions about the use of an EIN, feel free to look on this IRS website, and that will give more information. Next, you'll want to apply for licenses and permits. This is a step that is often skipped in a lot of startups, but it's something that's very important, making sure you get the correct licenses and permits. That way, those don't come back to bite you later on. So first, you'll want to check for the federal licenses and permits. You can check those on the SBA website listed here. Generally speaking, unless you are handling food products, something hazardous, or like nuclear waste, you probably don't have federal licenses and permits that you will need to get. Please check it out though, and make sure that you don't fall into any of those categories to get those, because you wouldn't want to accidentally miss that. But the ones that tend to get a little bit more specific are going to be the state and county licenses and permits. I have here the Kansas Department of Revenue. That's where you can check the state licenses and permits. They have a big long list and kind of an explanation of what each of them means, what kind of license and permits you would need, and who to call to get that. So that is very clearly laid out for you for the state. But for individual counties, you'll have to call the individual county and get that information from them directly. They generally don't have them available on their website or anything, so you'll just need to call and discuss with them what kind of licenses and permits may be needed for your particular business. And finally, I'm going to try and wrap up quickly so we have time for questions. You'll want to open a business bank account. So in order to open a business bank account, you'll need an EIN or a social security number if you're a sole proprietor, your business's formation documents, your ownership agreements, and your business license. So you want to open up a business bank account. I would say almost everybody, even though a sole proprietor doesn't require a business bank account, since you and your business are the same entity, you don't have to have that separation. Other business structures do require a bank account, but I would encourage all business structures to consider doing this, even if you're a sole proprietor, because it can be really helpful to keep your finances straight if you have a separate business account that you're functioning out of. I meet with some sole proprietors who want to take their business to the next level, or who are wanting to expand or do something new in some way, but they don't really truly know what their expenses are or what their revenue looks like, because it's all just been intermingled in with their personal account. So having a separate business account can help to keep some of that accountability and to see where your finances are coming and going, allow you to do projections for the future and to just get a better handle on your business overall. But once again, if you are an LLC or a corporation or anything like that, you are required to have a separate business bank account to keep that separation of finances between you and your business. All right, we have about 10 minutes for any final questions that anyone may have. I'll have my chat box open here, so feel free to throw them in there if you have any questions. So there's a question about more information on the hub zones. You know, I'm just going to have to refer you to that link. Unfortunately, I don't have a whole lot of information on them, except that the purpose of them is just to help underutilized or underutilized economic areas in the nation to get a little bit of a boost. So you may get some taxation benefits, you may get some government assistance by being in a hub zone or having business in one of those zones. And those are outlined in the hub zone link that I shared. The zones can be pretty narrow, they can be pretty wide, it just kind of varies on what the government outlines as areas that are underutilized economically. So I hope that's a helpful answer to at least get you started. Somebody asked if I can expand on the difference between liability protections between an LLC and a corporation. So the liability protections for your personal assets are going to be the same for both, as long as you are keeping separate financial records. Essentially, as long as you are not commingling your funds with the businesses, your personal funds are going to be protected. And that's what the essence of it is that even if the business goes down, unfortunately, it's not going to come back on you personally, whether it's a corporation or an LLC. Somebody asked, can a sole proprietor protect assets by putting the house and car in the spouse's name? I cannot say for sure, but I do not believe so. Because, you know, unless there is a complete financial separation between you and your spouse, then, you know, your personal assets are still intermingled with their personal assets, which would be mingled with the business. So if you're looking for liability protection, I would highly encourage you to consider an LLC for that purpose. And then Marcia just put a link to more information on hub zones into the chat. So if you are looking for more information on that, feel free to go there as well. Somebody asked if I could describe how much it costs to register an S-Corp and the annual maintenance cost. I don't have that information readily available, but if you go to the Kansas Department of Revenue and look to file as an S-Corp, or the IRS, that link that I had included there, they will outline the different costs that are available for, or that are required for an S-Corp, as well as the maintenance that is required for it. When you bump up into a corporation, whether it be a C Corp, an S Corp, a B Corp, there is a lot more paperwork that goes with it. There is a lot more information you have to register with it, and a lot more complications with that. So a lot of business owners tend to steer away from that, although it can be a good option for those who are looking to do kind of raising some equity with shareholders. Any other questions? Somebody asked what the two entities I mentioned for crowdfunding were. Those were Indiegogo, INDIEGOGO, and The other is Kickstarter. So a couple of differences between Indiegogo and Kickstarter. Indiegogo tends to be more for tech startups. So if you have more of a techie product, that could be a good place for there to put it in there. There could also be, or with Kickstarter then, that's more of a generalized one. But with Kickstarter, you set a financial goal of we want to try and reach this much in this amount of time. If you are not able then to achieve that goal or come shy of it, then everybody who invested money gets their money back and you walk away with nothing. So there's kind of, you have to be able to set good but realistic goals for Kickstarter. Both Indiegogo and Kickstarter also really maintain and watch the businesses to make sure you're coming through on your promises for products and the benefits and rewards that those shareholders are going to receive. So I would highly consider, what is a realistic goal for you and what is something that you can feasibly give as a benefit to those who are investing in your company via crowdfunding. If you're interested in hearing an entire workshop on crowdfunding, I'd encourage you to fill out the evaluation form that we'll be sending after this presentation, and please mention it there because we'll be considering different types of workshops that will be beneficial for our clients and those who are attending our workshops. So we want to know what you're going to find valuable. So if that's something you would like to hear more on, please feel free to put it in there and we'd love to get that information to you. Okay, well, if that is all the questions that are available, I want to spend just the last, oh, sorry, one more popped in. Let me grab that one. Somebody asked, how do you start doing market research? So I would encourage you to first determine what are your goals for the market research. Are you just trying to get any general information to give you a direction? Or are you looking for some sort of specific information? Once you've determined that, I would highly encourage you to go to a local library. They have a wide variety of resources to help you get started and narrow in on your market research goals. So if you're looking for, how many people fit within the target market that I am looking to target, well, what I would first do is say, okay, what's the location you're looking to target? Is it Wichita? Okay, how many people are in Wichita? What's the age range you're looking to target? Okay, how many people in that age range are in Wichita? That information can be found on the Census Bureau. Then you look at, what's the general kind of attitude or psychographic information I'm looking for these people. I would encourage you to find that on the ESRI tapestry for kind of that more nuanced version of your target market. So starting to do market research is something where I would encourage you, if you don't know where to start, go to a library, ask if you can see industry reports. There's IBIS reports that they may be able to pull for you at local libraries to start just getting your hands around market research. It can be a very broad and difficult topic. Hopefully that answered your question. If you're looking to do an individual survey or wanting information on how to write a survey, feel free to reach out to the Kansas Small Business Development Center and we'd be happy to work with you on getting that information. Okay, we are coming up on the end of the hour here, so if you have any other questions, feel free to message me at this email address, emily.rischel@wichita.edu. I do want to just mention to everybody that we have a few more workshops available. Tomorrow at the same time, we're doing Stop the Marketing Shout. It's not too late to register for that. That one's essentially going to go over what is consumer behavior right now during COVID-19 and how is that evolving, and then giving you some ideas for potential marketing things that you can do. And then the next two webinars that we have are state tax webinars to just help walk you through what does sales tax and state tax look like for your business. Carl York from the Kansas Department of Revenue will be presenting that, and it's a very interactive webinar, so you're able to talk to him and ask him questions. All right, if you're interested in finding any of this information, feel free to find it on the Kansas Small Business Development website. You can go under training and see the different workshops that we have available. I'm going to cut off the webinar here because we're running a little long on time, but thank you all for joining me today. Hopefully you found something new, some good information. And this presentation will be available to you through an email. The recording for this will also be available to you. The evaluation for this will be sent out as well. And if you have any additional questions, please feel free to sign up for an advising session on our website, or to just go ahead and call the center and we'll get you set up for that. Thank you everybody for joining today. Hope you have a wonderful day.